Greetings, this is Vane and welcome back to Let's Play the Elder Scrolls Arena. Okay, what should we ramble about today? Well, I mean, as you may know, I tend to record this in blocks, so yeah. I'm recording this after the ramble of the last episode. Which was fun. A fun stream of consciousness thing where basically he ended up talking about the Holocaust. Well, not specifically the Holocaust, more how one ends up. Gorgeous inscription in the rock here seem to indicate the same big pies this way not long ago. Okay. Basically, how one might go to the final solution of getting to an extreme view like gassing the Jews. You know, well, or more accurately, why one might, if they come to the idea that that is a solution, might actually follow up on it. Now you might be wondering why that's a go-to example. And well, quite frankly, the truth is, anti-Semitism is on my mind. A lot. Anyone who's been involved in politics for the past 5 years will understand kind of why. If you joined, and I remember the Labour Party, I joined under Corbyn. Therefore, you know, apparently I'm anti-Semitic in principle. Not saying I believe, of course, but yeah. So anti-Semitism is on my mind, especially the cause of anti-Semitism. I mean, I dislike the claims. I dislike the assertion that everybody in the Labour Party who shares a pro-Palestinian yeah, anyone who shares pro-Palestinian view, i.e., which is generally that Palestine has a right to exist. Any criticisms of Israel and its agenda of genocide against Palestine, which, to be well, genocide's a bit strong, but to be honest, it's not much difference than the idea of manifest destiny that kind of was behind the ideology of the United States as they claim land from the Native Americans, you know. Now there are Native American reservations and everything else is covered by the United States, and it's like, basically what they've done is there's like zoos and special camps for Native Americans. They're not exactly gassing them. There are things, it's like, okay, but it's still not right, is it? In my opinion, they still took that land. So, you know, and to that extent, I would say, I'm an anti-Zionist in the principle of, and this is important, that Zionism is the belief that there is a Jewish homeland that all Jews are entitled to, in principle, and they have the right to take that land from whoever's there. Which seems to be a big foundation of Israeli national policy on that against the Palestinians. And it's like, no. I don't believe that anyone has a historic right to land. To be fair, I don't think people have a right to land at all. You know. But I mean, and a lot of the issues was that's been expanded, that those views are deemed anti-Semitic in principle because Israel is a Jewish state, and that's like, okay. By the same principle, any criticism of Saudi Arabia and Iran and the others are all Islamophobic because they're Muslim states attacking ISIS because they wanted to establish a caliphate. Whereas you know, where they decided the idea that Russia has claimed to the Crimea, for example. All of these because basically what you end up doing is picking and choosing which claims are right and which claims are not based on your politics. There's no principle, because either everyone has a claim to whatever they want or they don't. You know, if Israel is a claim to that homeland in Palestine, then by the same principle, Russia is perfectly right to claim Ukraine and the Donbass and everything else on behalf of Russian-speaking people. You know, so why is it that Russia gets sanctions but Israel don't? And any criticism is suddenly anti-Semitic. So, but yeah, I mean, the anti-Semitism thing was kind of ludicrous and sort of destructive, because the big problem was that to say anti-Semitism is a problem is, I mean, as far as many people in the Labour Party are concerned, one anti-Semite is one anti-Semite too many. You know, discrimination is discrimination, and you tackle discrimination. I mean, it's often joked the only real discrimination that's allowed in the party is the fact that you can attack Tories. And again, like I said, that's people who deliberately chose the policies that are defined as Toryism, as opposed to people who just vote for it. Because there is a difference. I mean, the whole political structure can make a difference. If, for example, maybe you want to vote Lib Dem, but there isn't a Lib Dem candidate standing in your area, but you still believe that you should vote. You know. Maybe you don't believe in socialism because you don't believe that it should be enforced on people, which is understandable. But given the choice, given the choice and the freedom, maybe you will go and do charity work and donate to, like, for crises and stuff like that. I mean, it's weird because there are generally, whenever there's a crisis in that regard, say like the earthquake in Turkey and Syria, there was a lot of relief support for that, and a majority of people would have donated and been cared and basically would have reacted. And the thing is that in itself, that behaviour, you know, can be deemed socialist. I mean, as a form of governance, okay, basically what the form of governance is that instead of giving it directly to people in the form of charity, you give it to the government and they do it on your behalf. That's the only difference. I mean, if you're donating to children in the UK to deal with poverty, some sort of charity like that, then technically, I mean, what you're doing is it's a non-government form of child benefit. So it makes no sense if you were to support that and then oppose, you know, child benefits for whatever. Scratched into the wall, here is a short message. Where the Emperor's minions await me. Strange message to find in these depths. Okay. I mean, I believe in various forms of nationalisation. For example, I believe the railways should be nationalised. I'm a big fan of railways. But the system itself is extremely complicated. For no real reason. Other than because that's how they want to make the money. And I believe transport should be free, basically. Or rather, I believe that you shouldn't necessarily pay for transport directly per use, if that makes sense. Bit of a weird one. I know people are not always keen on that, but I think there's a lot to be gained if if you were to have free transport in the cities, for example. Economically, I think that you'd get more use on a public service if you invested in it and it was free. But on the same thing, I mean, even if it's just a nominal fee, having the transport there in the first place is good, and having it nationalised, well, when it's like, and you can sort of like, okay, you pay your taxes and you get a transport tax for public transport and roads and stuff that everyone pays, because everyone walks on the streets, everyone uses roads, okay, not everyone uses public transport at the moment, but with public transport being as simple as a bus, you know, there is an argument that everyone can potentially use transport. I personally think that that might be a good approach. Of course, not everyone agrees with me, but then that's the point. It's not required that everybody agrees with me. It'd be nice if they did. But it's not a necessity. Okay. I mean, it's not like they can't do it. I mean, it's like every New Year, for example, London gives free transport for revellers so they can get back safely at night from New Year's Eve parties and stuff. Especially like the celebrations that are often happening in London. So they can do it. And it's like, okay, they can give freedom passes to pensioners and stuff. So it's not like it's impossible to do. The question is, how much does that afford? Because I think ultimately there's a good chance that if you're spreading that around everyone, that's paying taxes, then, you know. And the other thing is like, okay, the profits to be made from transport, as for example, why are they going to private shareholders to line their pockets when it can go to the government and they can reinvest it, as long as they are, and this is the important thing, they are reinvesting it. It's going. The problem we have in the UK is that you pay taxes, and it seems that a lot of the taxes that are paid end up not going to do the pub, but to bail out banks and stuff who don't pay taxes. And it's like, oh, well, the economy will collapse if they go. And the question is, will it though? More importantly, instead of just giving them money, you know, shouldn't the government end up having a stake, or even better, take over the bank itself and then provide a national banking service? You know, well, we've got a government that's obsessed with privatising stuff simply because they know that when their term is over, they can get a job on the board of whatever they're privatised. They can take their experience. Go, look, I did this, so give me a job. Because that's all it is. It's about... There's no going into government to help people. It's all about going into government to help yourself, because politics is a career. And once you've done and got out of it, you need something else to do. Something else to keep the money in, because apparently the money you're getting is chicken feed. According to one Boris Johnson. And it's like, hang on a minute. What does he actually do where he needs that amount of money? You know, what is he actually paying apart from child support? Or not, as the case may be. Because he doesn't actually know how many children. Because no one actually knows how many children he actually has. Well, they probably do, but that's the joke. The joke is nobody knows. You know, because he's quite the... it was quite the philanderer. Although apparently he's settled down at the moment. We'll see how long that lasts. But maybe he is settled down. Maybe he's mellowed. Or maybe he's just doing what he always does and probably having another affair somewhere, who knows. Apparently that doesn't matter when it comes to politics. Because personal integrity and caring about other people and not cheating on people and stuff like that just isn't a requirement. Nobody cares. So, okay, fair enough. Nobody cares. I don't mind that. It's like, well, nobody cares about that, but about cheating and lying and stuff like that. But apparently, what gender you are in a bathroom matters when you're trying to have a pee, for example. Why? Because according to J.K. Rowling, everyone's a sexual predator. Because she had issues. It's like, no. I mean, she's even stated such as herself, because just like with she's expressed clearly anti-transphobic views, and because she's like, this is a danger. These people are dangerous, and it's like, apparently that's acceptable. But it's like, hang on a minute, you're literally turning around and saying that everyone who's transgender is dangerous, is a possible sexual predator. And she's like, oh yeah, well, my views may offend when I publish them, but it's important because they're dangerous. It's like, well, fair enough, there's your views, you're entitled to your views, but your views are transphobic. You know, you replace transgender with Muslims or Jews or whatever, and you've got Islamophobia or anti-Semitism or anything else. It's exactly the bloody same. But, oh no, we're allowed that one. You know, why? Because, you know, biology. I mean, that's the one that usually comes along. It's like, well, yeah, okay. But then all they're saying, again, is that, you know, because it's particularly about trans women, which is sad. And trans men, apparently trans men are harmless. But just ignored. It's trans women that are dangerous. Because basically, if you were born with a penis, you're basically a rapist. So what? But then again, radical feminism for you. I understand feminism. I would consider myself it depends what views specifically, but in general I would say I'm a feminist because I believe in the rights of women. I don't believe that those women rights should overtake the rights of men, because I believe there has to be some sort of equality. But at the same thing, I do support women in everything they go through, and there are differences, and some of them are biological. You know, it'd be stupid to say otherwise. So things like, okay, not being punished if you get pregnant at work. You can't be fired if you get pregnant while you're at work, for example. Having children isn't a right to get you kicked out of a job. I mean, to be honest, I don't want to think of a world where that was allowed. Because you can tell right now you'd have unscrupulous bosses, because there's always unscrupulous people who would basically hire people to rape women that they wanted out of a job. You know. Oh no, they wouldn't do that. That's abhorrent. What are you saying? It's like, well, no, they would. Unscripted, because that's the whole point. Unscrupulous people would, because they're unscrupulous. It's the whole point. That's the definition of being unscrupulous. They don't have the scruples to turn around and go, no, that's wrong. Or I shouldn't do that. And in some cases, that's going to be through choice, not because they might not understand why that's not appropriate. You know. But yeah, I mean, it's like, okay, well, fine, but trans women using the bathroom, they just want to pee. Oh, there's a ladder down there. Okay. That's it, they don't want, you know, it's all stalls, they just want to pee. You end up making assumptions that are not appropriate based on your own fears. Again. And again, Tories fearing Tories. Because in general, what defines a Tory is it defines Toryism as in the traditional sense, it's somebody without scruples. Somebody who doesn't care. So for them, they don't care about, you know, women's rights and stuff like that. They don't care about the issues that women go through. They only care about themselves and what benefits them. And if they can get away with it, they will. Thing is, I believe that is... Sounds stupid. I believe that's the that's basically the definition of sociopathy. You know? I mean, again, it's strictly people who choose that option. They choose to be like that. It's how they choose to behave. If people are making those choices, then that's their personality, that's them, you know. So if J.K. Rowling knew that her views were going to be offensive to people, that, you know, because she feels she's standing up for women's rights, and that's the problem, because the competition between trans women and women in terms of women's rights is artificial. There is no issue. In fact, there's an argument to be made that, because I mean, that's okay. It's all about definitions and stuff. Okay, so you're born with a penis, therefore you're a man. Fair enough. Okay, you're assigned male at birth. That's understandable. There's no way a baby can turn around and go, actually I'm a female, actually I'm this, I'm actually... They won't understand any of that. You know, so you're assigned male from birth. Get that. Get that, that's all figured out. Okay. But the question is whether or not you can change. And it's like, well, for transgender people, it's like, can you change your gender? If you've been assigned at male at birth, are you always male? Are you always going to be in that role? There's a lot of stereotyping involved. But basically, you define what a man, what a man essentially is. The one thing a man cannot escape is, if you don't define a man as someone who was born with a penis, then yeah, you cannot change that. The fact that you were born with a penis is never going to change. But if you define a man as someone who uses a penis, or particularly uses their penis, let's be accurate, then yeah, that can totally change. You know, it kind of builds in with the issue of J.K. Rowling and the difference, because it's like, okay, you've got these people who have decided that they're not using their penis. They don't want to use their penis. You know, for the most part. I mean, there are other definitions. I mean, it's like women have spent a lifetime basically arguing that they're more than just a vagina. You know, and that they do more in roles than just getting pregnant and caring for children and stuff like that. Now, in some cases, this has eroded the stereotype for women, because it is largely about stereotypes. Because in the end, what you're doing is you're relating your gender identity to expectations and roles as you know them, because that is how the nature of identity works. Gender identity exists simply because it's how they relate to the world around them, regarding, especially if I mean, a lot of people don't think about it because it, you know, it's all part. People don't think about it because quite often they don't have any sort of issues. It's not something that upsets them or distresses them or something they feel like they want to change for whatever reason. And they're called cis people simply because the shorthand for being transgender is trans, and therefore the shorthand for the opposite of trans is cis, which means to stay the same or to not change. So whereas transgender is literally you change gender or moves gender, cisgender is someone who doesn't go through that process, doesn't have that, doesn't do that in, you know. It's not offensive. It's not an implication. It's just, yeah. It's just a term. I mean, I've been asked before, what do I think of cis people? It's like, well, they're people. That's the whole point. Just people. Personally, it's quite exhilarating to come out. And I think everybody should come out, simply because the process of coming out has been psychologically proven to result in more secure identities. You become more secure as yourself if you adopt and embrace an identity, your identity. You go, okay, this is me. This is who I am. This is who I've come to terms with, you know. And you do it in a positive way. And I think everybody should do that. I mean, everybody does do that to a certain degree anyway, because that's the whole point of being a teenager and exploring that. It's just like that's the time when you do it. But it's just that a lot of teenagers, when they go through that, I don't necessarily think about their gender as something that they can change. But we're getting to a situation where actually that's no longer true. Anyway, I'm going to leave it here. This has been Vane doing Let's Play the Elder Scrolls Arena. If you like what you're seeing here, be sure to like, subscribe, share and comment. Please consider sponsoring me on Patreon. And until next time, goodbye.